So let me go ahead and jump in and just kind of give you an update on what's going on with our business. So this is a slide I showed last year. As I talked about last year, we run our leadership team in two ways. We have an executive operating committee and as well as a core team. This is the member of the executive operating committee. I'm excited that Brent Cubis is here this morning in the back. Brent's our new CFO that started probably about a month ago. Brent's timing was perfect because he came in and was able to run the budget process as we go into 18. And then you can see next to Brent is our three regional presidents, Tony Manna in the Americas, then Richard Brook in Europe, and next year we will have those guys here. We do have with us this morning Anthony Bishop. He's not speaking on Asia Pac, but Anthony's in the back as well. And Anthony became president of Asia Pacific about a year ago when Dig moved into the chief operating officer role. You can see Dig down at my bottom left. Next to Dig is Jan, and then Dean and Stu, who will speak to you today. And then finally, Catherine McClellan, who's here today as well, who runs our people and culture. And I think we're really blessed to have a fantastic leadership team, not only the executive operating committee, but the whole core team, which is about 16 of our global leaders that lead the business on a daily basis. So I know you're familiar with our company, but just high level, we continue to be the market leader in implantable hearing, obviously an ASX listed company. And today we have about 3,000 employees around the world. And we do business in over 100 countries, and we have direct operation in 20 of those countries. And if you think about the world that we live in, we compete in the hearing loss category. And hearing loss is a huge opportunity for us as a company. Today there'll be over 360 million people around the world that have some form of disabling hearing loss. And that's about 5% of the population. And as a matter of fact, if you look at what the World Health Organization calls a catastrophic disease state, it's when more than 3% of the population has that disease state. So it's a big opportunity in hearing loss. It continues to grow at a rapid rate because it really impacts the aging population. As a matter of fact, 1 in 3 people over the age of 65 today would have some type of hearing loss. And as the population around the world continues to age, we'll see that market grow. And if you look at our little subcategory, especially in cochlear implants, we're able to get much deeper data from the World Health Organization on cochlear implant candidates in that hearing loss category compared to Baha. But if you just look at cochlear implants, it's about 37 million people that our product is indicated for. Yet our challenge and our opportunities, we still treat less than 5% of the people. Now we continue to grow our business and do a good job, but you can see it's a large market opportunity. In addition, the treatments in hearing loss are highly cost effective. This is, I think, a paper that is in your folders this morning, but the World Health Organization just put out a note on hearing loss. And a matter of fact, and how it costs $750 billion annually to treat or untreated hearing loss costs society. And you'll also see as you read through that, it particularly talks about how cost effective some of these interventions are. So not only do we have this huge market opportunity, but we also have an intervention that's incredibly cost effective to healthcare around the world. So from that large market opportunity, what we do is we have a mission that we wake up every morning and we think about on how we drive this business. And it really is a simple one. We want to help people hear and be heard. And to do that, we focus on 3 things. The first one talks about how we want to empower people so that they can connect to and live a full life. The second one, which I think today is probably the most important one, is we need to transform the way people think about and treat hearing loss. And the third one is one that I think we've continually done a fantastic job on our organization, is bring innovative products to market, or hearing solutions and or implants and processors to treat this disease state. And so we can give them a lifetime of hearing. And so every morning, that really is people walk into this building or walk into any cochlear role around the world. It is what drives us. It's the passion of the organization, but it's also the business mission that we think about. And to attack that mission, we really have created 4 strategic platforms, pretty simple ways to do that. And we really want to use those strategic platforms to allow cochlear implantation as well as Baha or all implantable hearing solutions to become the standard of care for the disease state that it's treated for. So our indicated world, those 37 million people. And to do that, we really focus on the customer. And as we think about our strategic platforms, 2 are very focused on the business. One is about growing the core. And what the core is, it would be the business that you kind of grew up knowing if you've known cochlear for a long time. It's about the implant world. And it's about what we do to start to identify candidates early on and bring them through that channel. It would be everything around our consumer marketing and our candidate marketing and our professional sales organization and training hospitals and surgeons. And it's from all that up to surgery and including initial activation. And that's really our core business. And then you really go from being a candidate to becoming a recipient. And as you become a recipient, you really move into what we call our service business. And this is about that lifetime value that we are able to provide 450,000 recipients. And by the way, every year that grows by 30 to 40,000 new recipients. So that recipient base continues to grow. To support those two business platforms, we really focus on our people, our team around the globe, and it's about shaping the organization. And finally, it's about creating value, and not just for our shareholders, but for our stakeholders, which are customers and clinicians, as well as our teammates around the world. So I'm going to share just a little insight on each one of those strategic platforms. Again, if you've seen this, if you were here a year ago, you see the exact same slide. So one of the things that I love about our strategy, it really is a 5-year journey that we're on. We continue to update specific initiatives, but the big focused area from a strategic perspective hasn't changed. If you think about growing the core, it's really 4 things that we need to do a great job on every day. The first is innovative technology. We want to continue to be the technology leader. Today, we'd spend about 12% on R&D, and we believe that has allowed us to maintain our market leadership position. Today, we'd be about 60% market share around the world with 5 competitors in that market. So we want to continue to have that be one of the foundations of the company is innovative technology, and again, Jan will share more of that with you. The second is around increasing awareness. And I really call this the McDonald's phenomenon. Matter of fact, the first time I ever talked to y'all, I called it the Chili's phenomenon because there used to be a Chili's restaurant down the street from the Americas office. No one here knows what Chili's is, so I've shifted it to McDonald's. But if you walk into McDonald's today, no one in McDonald's knows what a cochlear implant is. Now, to be fair, it's a little different in Australia. In Australia, we would have our highest penetration of anywhere in the world, probably about 9 or 10%, and the company's based here. But anywhere outside of Australia, the awareness of our intervention is incredibly low. So we continue to spend more and more time from a financial perspective driving that awareness around the world. And Dean's going to get up and talk about that, and that's really where the direct-to-consumer piece lies. The third one on there is about improving access. So once you know about a cochlear implant or a Baha, how do I get one? And again, I'll come back to the McDonald's. You walk into McDonald's today, you don't know what a cochlear implant is, but if you ask anybody what a hearing aid is, they know what a hearing aid is, and they know how to get access to one. Where do I go get treated? And whether is it covered or is it private paid? And again, hearing aids would be about 20% penetrated compared to us, which would be less than 5. But we have to improve access. And it's not just about new surgeons and new facilities, but it's also about driving legislation around the world to provide funding and a clear pathway for patients to come through the channel. And the fourth one, which we haven't spent much time on in the past, is business model innovation. And that really is becoming more important as an organization as our business grows. Because cochlear implant centers become, as they add more and more patients to their patient pool, they have to take care of those patients for life. So where maybe I thought this was an amazing intervention, I would do 40 patients a year and have 200 current recipients 5 years ago, today I'm doing 150 implants a year and I have 5,000 patients I have to care for. So how do we as an organization come up with creative business model innovations to enhance that process? We recently just signed a licensing agreement with a company out of Belgium called Odo Consult. And Odo Consult has a software called Fox. And what Fox is an artificial intelligence software that allows a patient to be programmed with a cochlear implant to ensure they get the best possible outcome. Because one of the challenges that we have as we continue to grow this business is one is we want to streamline patient care in large facilities, but we also want to add new facilities. So how do you make sure that a patient who's being implanted by a clinic that's only maybe done 20 cochlear implants ever gets the best possible outcome? One of the ways to do that is through Fox and this artificial intelligence. As we continue to meet with y'all, we'll spend more time around business model innovation. Last year I talked a little bit about Cochlear Link, which is the ability in a secure cloud to put patient data in the cloud and help us troubleshoot patients without them having to go to the clinic. So you'll see more and more that we spend time around this patient connectivity, which really sits under the business model innovation. Many times I'm being asked, why is the business growing so fast? So this is, I'm going to call this the Christina Devon slide for the folks in investor relations, because we get asked this question constantly. And if you think about our business, and Dean will spend more time on this strategically, there's really 2 worlds that we compete in, an emerging market world and a developed market world. If you look at about the developed market world, there's many things that are impacting the growth. And we're seeing 8 to 10% growth across our developed markets. One of them is around the direct-to-consumer, especially in the aging population. And again, Dean will spend time on that. We've gone through a pretty large sales force expansion, adding over 100 people over the last 12 to 18 months. That has allowed us to not just add professional salespeople, but for the first time ever starting to add consumer salespeople around the globe to really drive this awareness category and manage our volunteer network. The third one is we are focusing daily on how do we expand indications, and we're seeing that make a significant impact on the business. Whether it's around things like EAS or hybrid, or lowering the hearing criteria for patients in places like Japan. And the last one is that the outcomes continue to improve. With each generation of our technology, patients' performance gets better. And so as people who maybe were nervous about getting an implant because of losing that little bit of hearing that they've had, they see these incredible outcomes, and that's helping to drive the growth there. If you look at emerging markets, it's a different story. The one similarity I would say is we've expanded our sales force in the emerging markets. But it really is about us expanding our presence in markets that we used to not compete in. So if you go back 5 years ago, we didn't have a presence in Latin America, we didn't have a presence in the Middle East, and we didn't have a presence really in Central and Eastern Europe. We've now opened 3 offices. So we run Central and Eastern Europe now out of Vienna, and we continue to build that organization to focus on the Central and Eastern Europe. That office opened in the last about 12 months. We opened the Dubai office about 18 to 24 months ago, which is our hub for the Middle East, and put a strategic leader down there, and we're building up that organization. And then places like Latin America where we've opened offices. The other thing is we've continued to invest heavily in China and India because those are big growth markets for us. And as if you remember at our results, I talked a little bit about India and China. Those are, especially the China other, as well as India, are markets that are growing in excess of 40% every half. So we've seen great growth out of those markets. We continue to see expanded funding. And so I think we, a lot of times we'll focus on the China tender because everybody knows about the China tender. Without question, by the Chinese government providing a large tender, that has helped to grow that market. But you're also seeing things like in India. So today, about 16 or 17 of the 29 states in India provide funding for cochlear implants. That's new. And every year, we continue to work with that government to add more states into that process. We got approvals, for example, for bilaterals in Turkey. Something you probably wouldn't think about when you look at the overall picture of this business, but has made a positive impact and allowed that business to continue to grow at double digits. And then in Latin America, we continue to work to improve reimbursement. When you do move to government tenders, the great thing is that high water lifts all boats. And what happens is awareness grows in the community. And historically, our tenders are older technology. And from a private pay perspective, people want the newest technology. So what happens is the government tender helps drive that private pay business. And you get a sense of winning begets winning. I think also that we continue to add surgeons around the globe. And so we spend a lot of money and time training new surgeons and allowing them to get into that process and help them to build the cochlear implant business. Now, that all being said, I would say that the one challenge is it is very much a binary nature of a business. You either win a tender or you lose a tender if it's a tender, and it is kind of lumpy. And so depending on what's going on with the economics, for example, oil prices in certain countries, or if you look at Venezuela, the challenges that have gone from a government turmoil, it impacts occasionally what happens. So we'll continue to talk to you directly about the developed markets and the emerging markets. We will also, in results, give you insight into specific areas. As you know, we talk a lot about the United States growth or Western Europe growth or China private pay or other in the tender. But our thought is that every time we start to get together, we'll give you a little more color around what's impacting that growth. And maybe when we get to Q&A later, we can dive in deeper. The second business platform is the service business. So this means today, if you implant a child when they're 1, we need to run a business to be able to take care of that child for their entire lifetime, which is for the next 100 years. And it's one of the things that actually attracts people to this company. Take away all the business opportunities. It's a chance to be able to make an impact in a person's life and to build that relationship with that patient throughout a lifetime. But it does also create this business opportunity. So if you look within the services business, it really all starts with patient connectivity and engaging our recipients. Because, and Stu will talk about this, what happens is that an engaged recipient spends more with Cochlear than a non-engaged recipient. And we also find that an engaged recipient will upgrade faster. So we want to optimize our upgrades. And again, Stu will come back and talk about that. To help us do that, it's really about driving that digital side of the business and enhancing our digital services. Because why we want to continue to expand the sales force in an underpenetrated market, patient connectivity will all be about the digital world. And as we look at our next generation of products, whether it's an N7 or if you think about today our Baha 5, which connects directly to your iPhone, we have the ability to do that patient connectivity. But we need to make sure that patient's engaged. If you think about the service business as a whole and go back 15 years ago, it was less than 1% of our revenue. Today, it's about 25% of our revenue. So it becomes more and more important. And that's really why we made the decision about a year ago to carve out services and run it as its own business. Because if you think about our service business, it's very much a B2C business. And that's not the world that Cochlear kind of grew up in. We kind of grew up in the core, which was really a B2B business, selling to surgeons and to hospitals. But our service business is really a B2C. Now, the thing that drives that service business outside of patient connectivity and recipient engagement is you got to keep putting more patients into the funnel. So that's why we focus on how do we continue to drive the core to add more implants. And that's one of the great things about this business, is that why today we'd have 450,000 recipients around the world. Every year we can drop 30 to 40 more thousand recipients into that bucket. As I mentioned, to really support those two businesses, it's about shaping the organization. You can see there's several things on there. I'd say the two I'd love to highlight is one is about integrating what I call non-customer facing activities or enabling activities. So Greg Botkin and David Haxel are both in the room. David's our CIO and Greg Botkin, our Senior Vice President of Manufacturing. And they've done a fantastic job building up KL, especially around things like IT services and service and repair. In the old days, we would have had 10 service centers around the world repairing product. Now we're focusing all of that into KL and being able to drive down our costs and improve our efficiencies and also the quality of the product. And we actually run that now today almost like a manufacturing site for our processors when we repair them. But more and more, we believe that we can drive efficiency and effectiveness by looking at these non-customer facing activities and moving them to lower cost areas and to help us get better efficiencies and centralize it. It's about targeting that field expansion. We're not expanding our field all over the world. We're very selective on where we do it. We're really looking at high growth markets where we think that adding salespeople will help us. So if you look at places like China and India and Latin America, it's very focused on the professional side of the business. And if you look at places like Western Europe and the United States, it's right now expanding the consumer side of that business and recruiting volunteers and the people to lead that team. And it's also about building capabilities, bringing in people that have different life experiences that we need as we go forward as a company. So whether it's on the service side or on the digital side, or from an engineering perspective, the app side, how do we bring those new capabilities in the organization and continue to build it? And the last one is really about creating value. And you know, I think the bottom one obviously is important. We want to continue to meet or exceed our financial targets. But it's also about building strategic partnerships with the right partners like GN Resound. I know I talked to you guys a lot about how important that relationship is for us from a technology perspective, but it's just as important for GN from a commercial perspective as our organizations look at ways to work together. Or a partnership with Apple when you think about connecting to an iPhone. This year we also introduced the Innovation Fund. We realized that not all great technology comes from here. We can't have an invented here syndrome. So we created a venture fund to go out and look at innovative technologies around the world that we think someday will have an application inside Cochlear. And Mark Phelps runs that fund for us, and that continues to go incredibly well. And I mentioned this is about driving the efficiency and effectiveness. So what that all leads to is really where we're going to end from a financial perspective. If you were with us in August when we did the results, we talked about our guidance. Our guidance was to grow the NPAT 10 to 20%, which was 210 to 225. We also called out certain bullets on how we got to that. What's the currency going to be? Or what's going to happen, for example, with the R&D spend or the China tender? I do want to highlight that two things have changed since the August. We did update you this in February, but we did come to you in February at the half-year results and say that we will not sell as many units in China this year from a tender perspective as we did last year. And that was a change because originally said we sell the same number of units. And the second one now is that we've highlighted the R&D tax concession. Now that'll cost us about $1.5 million on the NPAT. But overall, we reiterate, continue to feel good about our guidance and where we're performing. We still got a couple months to go, but the team continues to do a great job as we move this business forward.